And we're going to be live in just a second.
So are you going to put up a message on Facebook that it won't be going live? Just so everybody knows.
Yeah, that we're on YouTube. Okay, so we're live, you guys.
So are you going to put up a message on Facebook that it won't be going live?
Yes.
So everybody knows.
Yeah, that we're on YouTube. All right, welcome you guys. It is Talk Therapy. I am your host, Tara T. Stallings, and
I'm Melody Manning. I'm sorry, y'all. We've been having some technical difficulties this afternoon, but I'm determined this is going to be a great show because normally when we run into problems, that's what it is. It's a great show, and we've got some good information that's going to be coming to you this evening. So I'm excited for this evening's show. We've got a special guest on the show this evening. We've got Jackie
Koski, close enough.
I will butcher a last name.
Close enough.
I apologize about that.
And Cummings, you can't forget the Cummings part, right? That's how we know each other.
We went to school together in South Carolina.
Go Bulldogs.
Silver Bluff High School, exactly.
Right.
And one of her big accomplishments, because she's a mother, she's an author, and she retired at the age 49, y'all.
Woo-hoo.
49. She retired at 49. And then guess what? On top of that, I learned that she wasn't making quite six figures and was able to still retire at 49. So that's a big accomplishment in itself. So we're going to have her on tonight. She's going to be sharing some information with you all on some of the steps that she took to be able to do that, and just be able to share and answer questions for you all also. So I'm going to turn it over to her just a little bit, and she can do a little more introduction of herself.
Hey, Melody. Hey, Tara. How are you guys? Well, first of all, thank you guys for having me today. And like Melody said, we know each other from high school. We both went to Silver Bluff High School. And it always means a lot to me to give back to my community. So it's great that I retired early. I learned a lot about personal finance and investing, but I couldn't imagine not coming back and trying to share what I have learned with everybody in my community. So I'm thrilled to be here today and ready to kind of chat with you guys a little bit more about it.
Awesome.
Great. That's awesome. I'm excited because one of the things we often think and project on ourselves is some things are not possible sometimes, and we get that mindset ourselves, not thinking that we can accomplish some things. And just your story sheds and shows a whole nother light to the equation. Because one thing I like to stress is people can hear something. I want to make sure I'm saying this correctly. You can hear something and it's out there, but you feel defeated before you even start because you're thinking, oh, that doesn't include me. I don't fit in that equation. But you can fit in that equation and start where you are. Right. You may not have that six-figure income. You may not even be making $40,000 a year. But the whole thing to me is just start somewhere to get yourself to another level, another point, and just to see that things are able to change. You can accomplish goals. You can dream. You can have that financial savviness if you properly just educate yourself and don't go ahead and think that you've lost the battle before you even start.
Right. Yeah, that's well said, Melody. And, when we were growing up, I mean, I was raised by a single dad with 6 kids. So I'm looking at a lot of people in high school like you that I thought was rich because we had so little growing up. So Melody was the rich girl in school. That's how it seemed to me. That's how it seemed to 16-year-old Jackie, right? Because we didn't have that much. And, again, a single dad raising 6 kids by himself. Like, I still don't know how he did it. But so I felt like I was starting like, way down here. And I had a long way to go just to even get to middle class. So so one thing I did want to show you guys is just some statistics around African Americans and personal finance, because I have heard and seen these numbers for a long time. And it was almost like planting these self-defeating seeds in my head, right? But I think that might have pushed me harder in the other direction to say, you know what? I'm not going to let these statistics keep me down. And I'm going to learn this stuff because I'm as smart as anybody else. So I'm going to try to share my screen here. Tara, I think you might have to give me permission.
Okay, let's see.
To be able to
I like
do it.
what you said. A lot of times people think that I can't learn. I don't know. It's confusing to me. Okay, you should be able to share now.
All right.
It's confusing to me, and so they shy away from it.
Right. Oh, yeah, that's so true. And I myself probably felt like, this is just not for me. I don't have all the advantages that everyone else have. I wasn't taught these things growing up. But again, those were all self-defeating thoughts around money. And so, technology is a great thing because I think once Google came in the picture and the fact that I can go on the internet and look up anything I wanted, that gave me a more level playing field. So I'm going to just show you kind of what these statistics are around African Americans and personal finances. And then I would like the conversation to head in a direction that says, okay, how can we change that? How can we do it better? And if I have to be the conversation starter, especially for my own community, I'm thrilled to do that. I'm raising my hand. So let me get to that slide that I want to show you guys. Okay. We're going to talk about some COVID-19 things. I'm going to just mention those there. We'll come back to that. But I really want to get to these stats. The first one is just general financial education in the US. So if you don't know about money, it's not necessarily your fault because it's not taught in schools. Okay, there's only 21 states that require personal finance as a standalone class. Now, Georgia and South Carolina, they require it for graduation, but it can be infused in an existing class. Let's say if you have a business class or an accounting class, they can stick personal finance into that class, and that will satisfy the requirement. So I think all 50 states, it should be a required standalone course. That's a great starting point. All right, so here are some stats. We're going to look at 3 different areas, and I don't think these numbers will surprise anybody, but just to see that there has been research and the real numbers might make a difference, and it might sort of just stick in your mind that, man, these are stark numbers that, we really do need to change. So the first one is unemployment. Now, again, with the COVID-19, that's changed the picture quite a bit, but this was back in 2016. And what I'm trying to really show here is just the disparity, right? So you can take almost any given year, 2018, 2019, and the same disparity exists. So if you look at unemployment among whites, it's only 4%, but among blacks, it's almost double. It's 8%. So double the unemployment. And the next one is like the median household income. So for whites, it was 61,000 in 2016. Now that's gone up a little bit since then, but again, it's just looking at the difference. So for African Americans, again, we almost make half of what the household income is for white Americans. And then the very last one, well, I want to mention this as well. So me as an African American woman, everybody on here, the three of us, we're all African American women. So African American women make 39% less than our white male counterparts. So
Wow.
we're already starting with higher unemployment and a lower household income. So we got a lot of challenges. The very last part about net worth, let me just remind everybody what net worth is. I'm sure everybody knows, but you take your liabilities, things you owe, like, your student loans, your mortgage, car loan, things like that. And then you take your assets. Your assets are going to be a retirement account, a savings account, the value of your car, the value of your home. So you take your assets and you subtract your liabilities, what you owe. So keeping that in mind, here is the median household net worth. This was, I think, back in 2016 as well. Yeah.
Wow.
So the average net worth of a white family in America, $171,000. So Melody and Tara, can you guess what the median household net worth would be for African Americans?
Whew.
Hmm.
If Hispanic, so I would say maybe 15,000, because I'm looking from the stats from before. What I said, 15,000.
Now that's pretty low, Tara. So the median for whites is $171,000, and you're saying that you think blacks is 15,000?
Well, the only reason I'm saying that, from looking at the stats from before, we were always on the low end.
Right, right. Okay.
It's 20.
That's okay. That's start, but it's reality, right? It's reality. Melody, what do you think?
I would say probably about 24, between 24 and 30.
Okay, so why do you say that? You think it would be greater than Hispanics? Because Hispanics is 20.
I would think we would be a little bit greater.
A little bit greater. Okay, let's take a look. Tara, you were right on.
Wow.
You were right on.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's less than the median household net worth of not only whites but also Hispanics.
Wow.
So that's just where we're at. That's just where we're at today. So we can continue the conversation, but I just wanted to show those just because that's where we are at. And those numbers have not changed a great deal. I think they do this type of survey and run these numbers, I think every 5 years. So I'm guessing in 2020, they might have new numbers come out, but they've been doing this for a couple of decades, and they all seem to be very similar. Again, the biggest disparity is in net worth. So that's what got me on this path to sort of chasing, okay, how do I get a better net worth? Based on those stats, I shouldn't have a decent net worth. I shouldn't be retiring early, but we're not going to let somebody else write our narrative.
Exactly.
So yeah. So, I mean, basically for me, like I was mentioning, I grew up in poverty in South Carolina, I think Silver Bluff and a lot of the schools in the area were Title I schools. I didn't even know what a Title I school was for a long time, but those are schools that get government assistance because they have a certain percentage of people that are on reduced or free lunch.
Yes.
So yeah, so a lot of us were poor growing up. The only thing that I remember that stuck with me was that I didn't want to be poor growing up as I got to be an adult and had my own kids. So I started trying to do whatever I thought would like get me out of poverty and kind of be my path to a better, economic situation. So I went to school. I went to Augusta College. I don't know what they call it now. They've changed the name a bunch of times. They changed
Augusta State
College, Augusta State University, Augusta University. They changed it to Georgia Regents. So they've changed it all these times. But that's where I went to school. And so I graduated from Augusta. It was Augusta College when I graduated. So after that, I felt like, okay, now I'm able to get a better job. I'm able to make more money. And I did. I ended up leaving Augusta like right after I graduated. My first real job out of college was in at Walmart headquarters in Bentonville, Arkansas. So I'm pulling up out of Augusta, Georgia, and I'm going all the way to Bentonville, Arkansas, where Walmart headquarters was. And so
Wow.
that was hard because I never been away from home. I really never traveled, never did much of anything. So that was a big pivotal moment, but it did put me around other people. I mean, for a while, I felt like everybody had more than I did. Everybody had an aunt or uncle or mom or dad that was like holding their hand and guiding them and saying, okay, this is how you do it. You know, this is all the tips, all the inside tips. And I felt like everybody was getting the inside tips but me. So I stayed in Arkansas probably for about 3 or 4 years, and I got married. When I got married, we ended up moving to Ohio, which is how I got to Ohio.
Okay.
And as soon as I got to Ohio, I found out I was pregnant with my daughter. And my daughter, she's 24 years old now, so she's grown. And so, we were happy in Arkansas, or when we moved out of Arkansas, we were pretty happy in Ohio for a while. But after about 10 years, I ended up getting a divorce. And that was the wake up call for me, because when I got divorced, it was very scary. And it probably took a good 2 years for me to wake up and realize that I was in a new reality as a single mom.
Wow.
And I think, a lot of times, we'll do for our kids what we won't do for ourselves. So I felt like, okay, now it's all on me. And so I was so enamored with trying to do well financially. So I would dig and dig, and I love listening to podcasts and YouTube and reading blogs and things like that. So I was just eating up all this information. And as I was doing that, I started doing some of the right things. I started saving my money. I started investing it, learning how to invest. I joined this investment club that, taught me about that. I started maxing out my 401k, maxing out my IRA, learning about taxes. And after about 10 years of like really laying things out and focusing on it, I was at this number that told me I could retire a lot sooner than I thought I could. And that sort of planted the idea in my head that, you know what, if I can, why not? So.
Wow. That's awesome. Because so many people after divorce, because I'm a divorcee also,
Yeah.
It's so tragic and so
It is.
financially draining.
It is.
It's hard to create a plan to get, to get stable.
Right. That's why I say it took me at least a couple of years, because it's financially draining, it's emotionally draining, psychologically. I mean, it rips out a lot of your self-esteem, and it just takes so much away from you. And it takes a minute to get your footing. And so when I finally was in that place, man, I ran so hard to try to, be in a better place. It was really myself and my mind space that was keeping me from, moving forward and trying to do things that I knew would put me in a better position. So once I kind of healed myself mentally and emotionally, that was the biggest deal. Because, there's that saying where they say, if you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. So once I believed that I could, I had to take some action. I couldn't just sit still and think about it. I had to do something. So I started doing these little things, and they started adding up.
Wow.
Let me say this, because I watched your video that you sent me, and when you're talking about your divorce, and in that video you shared something that you realized in the midst of your divorce, as far as what your husband's value was compared to yours. Can you give us a little bit of information on that? Because I think it's important, for women, well, for both partners, I'm gonna say it like that, to really know where each other stands during the process, during the marriage.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of an embarrassing thing for me. And I finally got to the point to where I do openly talk about it. But so at the time that I was going through a divorce, there was something called Quadra, which is qualified domestic relations, something. But basically, it's where they take all the retirement accounts, they put them in one pot, and they split them. Now, I didn't even know about this process when all this started. So when we was pulling all the documents together, you had to pull your retirement statement and then he had to pull his. And at this point, we were making about the same money and we had a similar 401k match from our employers. So there was no big disparities there, right? I'm thinking we have about the same amount in our retirement accounts or 401k. So when I looked at mine, I had $20,000 and I'm about 36 years old at this point. So I'm figuring, hey, that's pretty good. I'm 36 years old. I got $20,000 in my retirement account. But then my husband had $120,000 in his 401k. So there was $100,000 difference in my 401k and his 401k. And I felt so dumb that I did not know that. We didn't sit down and we didn't look at these things together. So it completely blindsided me. I just felt like I've been sleeping. What have I been doing where I had no idea about this? Now, again, luckily because of the quadro, it got split down the middle, but I kept asking myself, how did this happen? How did this happen? And I really never arrived at the answer, but I did promise myself that I will never be this financially vulnerable and so financially ignorant. And that was probably something else that just kind of pushed me in the direction to say, I'm going to do this better from him on out. And there's no excuses. Mm-hmm. So that was what kind of, helped me a lot as well. Just again, from a mental standpoint.
And I think this is something that all couples, all married couples should really discuss. And it doesn't matter. I really want to stress this because a lot of people think, and they can get it in their mind, well, this doesn't pertain to me because I don't have a real big salary. But whatever you have, it's still good to have that financial literacy and to also have these discussions and know where your partners, stand. Because, and I hear you when you say that it's kind of embarrassing, but it was a learning lesson.
Right.
And so many times we all, we just assume things or sweep it under the rug or don't have those hard conversations. We all do that at some point. So it was just something that you learned from, because it was something that, even because I'm a widow, even with you said when you discovered it, it's something to think about and say, well, you know what? That was something we never really, talked about in the relationship. So I think it's important. And I'm
Melody,
glad that you shared that.
Yeah. And, we weren't making a ton of money at that time. I would say at that time, we were making between like $30,000 and $40,000 a year. So we weren't making big money at that point. But again, it begs the question, how did he get $100,000 in his account and I only had 20,000?
Wow.
So these little things, they do add up. And not that we even had to have everything combined, although we did, I thought we did. We never sat down and looked at that. So whether you decide to combine finances or not, you still should know where everything sits, because what if something happened to one or the other and you don't know where things are at and you don't know how much is here or how much is there. So that was a big learning experience for sure.
Wow. It's so often that, especially African American, we are not taught a lot about investing. We're not taught a lot about finances. It's just, what they say, what grandma them or mama them taught. And a lot of that stuff, and not taking from them, because a lot of times they didn't have much, but they took what they had and they made it work and they made it grow. Right. But it took a lot of years to get there. By the time they got financially stable, they were old. Versus, other cultures in their 20s and 30s and 40s, they're stable. They have a nice, stable financial foundation. Right. Whereas because they have those conversations within the family, it's two things that I know that African Americans don't talk about. We don't talk about death and we don't talk about finances.
Right.
And I think that's the most, that's what hurts us the most.
Right.
And I think the reason is that because we don't talk about finances because we don't know what to talk about. We don't know how. we're not educated in that area. And death is just something, you know, we think it's just, we're gonna handle it when it comes.
Right.
So and it leaves us with the short end of the stick on both ends.
Right. And that could be a reason why those numbers are what they are, right? And I've been on a one woman mission to remove the taboo of talking about money. So when I can get with you guys and our sisters and our brothers and anyone that's watching this show to talk about money and see that I'm willing to get vulnerable and share my numbers, you know, the video that you guys shared, you know, that was the first time where I'm like, you know what? I'm throwing this out the window. It is what it is. Here are my numbers, because I feel like if I want to remove the taboo, I have to start with myself, and I have to be willing to talk about things that I'm uncomfortable talking about, things that I knew was not okay to talk about when I was growing up, as far as money. And I'm definitely going to leave you guys with some resources to start with, some basics, some things that were very helpful in my journey and learning about personal finance. And of course, a few resources from the African American perspective, because there's a lot of content creators talking about money and personal finance. You just may not know, you know, who to listen to or where to find them. So because I have done so much research and dug into this area so much, I want to share the things that I found to be most helpful. So we'll definitely make sure everyone has that, and that way they have somewhere to go after we're done tonight.
Great. That sounds good. That sounds good. Because I learned a lot from the video as far as the numbers, and I'm like, okay. I had to call Tara. I said, well, Tara, have you ever heard of this? What is it?
Well, I tell you what, if you guys will allow me, I will go through like those 3 slides that just show my numbers. And again, thank you for mentioning that there were some things that you didn't know. It's okay to not know. There was so much I did not know. But if there's a word or concept I don't understand, let's say a Roth IRA. Okay, if I don't know what that is, I'm going to go look it up. You know, Google is great. Google is your friend. And so you just fill in the holes. And some of these terms that I might use, because I've done enough research, you know, for myself. But if you hear them and you've never heard of them before, there's so many resources to figure that out. And this might just be the first pass, just the first thing that maybe gets your wheels to turn in just a little bit. So let me see if I can share my screen again.
Awesome. Yes.
Okay.
We always say knowledge is power, but we don't always, we're not always willing to get the knowledge that we need.
Right. All right. So can you guys see that okay?
Yes.
Okay. So I always like to start off with just, you know, what I overcame, and the fact that I didn't start, you know, from the time I was a kid, knowing all of this stuff and having it all figured out. So, you know, these are just, as I mentioned before, you know, these are just some of the adversities that I faced just from the start.
Right.
So I'm thinking like I'm getting a late start, you know, and maybe again, that's what pushed me forward so hard, because, you know, I had all these mistakes and all these things in my past that said I shouldn't be successful, that says I shouldn't be saving and investing and things like that. So again, I had to jump over this hurdle and overcome all these things just to get started. Wow. You know, if you have an advantage where, you know, you didn't have some of these adversities, then that's great. You starting at a better place than I did. And so when I started unveiling my real numbers, I just really wanted to show everybody, here are my numbers, and they're probably not much different than yours. So I first of all, I cover like my salary and my expenses. So I only made about $80,000 a year. So I'm not making a big 6-figure salary or anything. And I had a little side hustle, and it still do, you know, where I bring in about another $2,000. You know, we all have multiple streams of income now. And again, I never made over 6 figures. And I have a home, you know, where I live, and I still have $70,000 on my mortgage. I opted to keep that because the interest rate is so low. But again, these are very personal decisions, but I don't want to hide anything. I want to show you exactly what I got here. Now the interesting part is that even though my income was about $80,000, my expenses were about 40,000, and I live a pretty comfortable life. You know, I have a 4-bedroom home. I drive a nice car, and I go out when I want. I go out to eat when I want. You know, I'm pretty comfortable, so I'm not scrimping and saving per se. And then my early retirement number, again, this is only from doing, some research, a very simplistic things, 25 times your expenses. That's why being able to have your expenses be manageable, and a lot of us will call that, a budget. I mean, I never was hardcore on budgets because I'm not the, cut out the latte girl.
Okay.
But that is something that makes a difference, because if I spent all 80,000 that I made, I would never be able to save anything. And I would need a heck of a lot more to retire on. So that's why I just highlight my income was 80,000 and my expenses were about 40,000. Big difference. So the difference in that's what I saved and that's what I invested. So that was it. And the only reason you know this is when you finally sit down and you start looking at where your money's going. Sometimes our money is going to places that we don't even care about, that we just haven't paid attention. It could be going to a high interest credit card debt. Nobody wants to give their money to the credit card company. It could be going to, a bunch of overdraft fees. So I just found the things that I loved and the thing that I valued, and I'm fine with spending money on that. At least I know where it's going. But I did find some things that I wasn't too happy that I was spending money on, and I corrected that. So, and then just the savings part, again, I had almost $40,000 that I was saving, and I had almost a 50% savings rate. I mean, I think the typical financial expert advice is, oh, save 10%. I mean, that's okay if you want to retire at 75, but I knew that I wanted to retire a lot earlier than that. And so in that 40% savings rate, so where did that come from? Well, I was maxing out my 401k, and I think these are 2019 numbers. So that was like $19,000. I was getting a good company match, so the company benefits really matter. And then I mentioned before a Roth IRA. That's just an IRA is just an account that you can set up that has nothing to do with your company. You can set that up yourself, and the max is $6,000. And then a health savings account. Companies are starting to offer these high deductible health plans. If you haven't seen one where your company's offered it, then you probably will, because the high deductible plans are cheaper for the employer, and but because the deductibles are a little bit higher, they offer these health savings accounts. Well, when I started really looking at them, I saw that you can roll the money over year after year. Because in the beginning, I thought, okay, I have to spend it by the end of the year. That's a different account. That's a flexible spending account. But this health savings account, I could roll it over from year to year and I could invest the money. So I'm like, okay, I'm down with that. And then I was able to do my family max because it was me and my daughter.
And then, now that's something, I hate to interrupt you, but that, Jackie, was something that I learned, because my job, we offer both the flexible and the savings, but I typically always do the flexible. And I shared with Tara that I didn't spend all that money last year. So I ended up losing a couple $100 at the end of the year, because it does not roll over. Right. So now, since I listened to your video, I'm going to probably be doing the HSA, from this point on. That way, at least I won't be losing any money at the end of the year.
You can hold on to that money. But I thought the same thing that you thought, Melody, when they first introduced these health savings accounts. Now, you do have to be on a high deductible health plan. But when I first saw it, I'm like, oh no, I don't want that, because, I end up losing my money at the end of the year if I don't use it. And I think I was talking to a coworker, and she said, no, it's different. So I said, okay, let me look at it closer. So I did. And when I did, and I saw that it's not use it or lose it. You don't lose it at the end of the year, and that I could roll it over and I could invest it as well if I didn't use the money. I was just all about it. But I wouldn't have known that if I didn't dig into it and learn for myself, because at the time they were kind of new and nobody knew a whole lot about them, like even my benefits department. So again, I was back to trying to Google and learn things on my own.
Yeah,
So,
because our benefits department, they didn't, it's like
yeah,
these are the two choices, but they don't really go in depth on
right,
the HSA. they
right.
push the flexible. It's just what it is. But this year, I will probably most definitely be doing the HSA.
Yeah, and open enrollment usually rolls around sometime between, September to December for most employers. And they list out the different options. And I think most of us are just used to automatically choosing the option that we've always had. And now there's so many different plans out there, so many different things that you can do. It's definitely worth taking a little extra time during open enrollment to make sure that you're doing the best thing that's good for your pocket and your situation.
And I want to chime in because I know a lot of my listeners are like myself. I am all my jobs, I'm self-employed.
Right.
So, and a lot of people don't know that self-employed, okay, you don't have a 401k, but you can have a Roth IRA.
Right.
And what that is, because a lot of people, what they're doing is they're just trying to, well, a lot of young people, because of grandmother and, go buy you some CDs, invest money, that's what they were taught. Go buy.
Right.
Go buy, and you're not getting a good return on those CDs.
Right.
So them knowing that they can go and set their retirement fund up in a Roth IRA so that they can start generating wealth, and also use it like a money market account. They can have it so like it's a money market account, and they can generate wealth from that. Is important because so many people believe that, when I'm self-employed, my job is not matching it. Well, you are your job. You
right.
So you have to become the matcher.
Right. So thank you for bringing up that point, because unfortunately, a lot of small business owners, they don't take care of themselves as far as their retirement, or they might see their business as a retirement plan. And maybe it does so well to where it is. It is taking care of them in retirement, but you almost have to plan as if it would not. And so not everything is tied to an employer, but like you said, Tara, you are the employer, and there's at least 3 I can think of different plans that are specifically designed for small businesses. So I'm thinking of something called a Simple, SIMPLE, a solo 401k, and like an SEP. So all you would do is Google small business retirement, and it will show you all the different ones that you can do. But even if you didn't want to do any of that, you're right. You could start with an IRA, and a Roth just simply means that you don't get a tax deduction today, but it grows tax-free and you never have to pay taxes on it again. A traditional IRA, you do get a tax deduction for that current year, but there are some income limits around both of those. So those have nothing to do with employer. You can completely do it on your own. All you need is earned income. So either W-2 or 1099 income. That's all you need. And you can just, and especially while you're young, you can just start with a really small amount. You don't have to go gangbusters to begin with, but think of it almost as a reward for yourself, looking out for yourself. If all you can do is $50 a week, then do the $50 a week. That's a start. And you can say, I got my retirement, and once your business is doing better, or you have a great year, you shovel that right into your retirement account, and it will probably make you sleep a little bit better at night to know that you have a little something, for your retirement. So, yeah.
And I think, Melody, you talked about that earlier when we were talking. A lot of times people that's not making a certain amount of money, they feel like, oh, well, I can't save. And you were sharing that, it's not about the money that you make. It's about the amount that you save. You said, pay yourself first. It's a lot of times it's the small things. It's not, you don't have to go out and, you said, be like gangbusters. Do it small. $50. We nickel and dime more than $50 a week. A lot of people.
Right.
Yeah.
I just, Tara, I think it's just the consciousness around that. I think once people kind of hear or they learn the fact that they could start saving and investing with such small amounts and it can grow, maybe that's something they'll do. But if it's never talked about, if it never comes up in conversation, they've never heard about this, how are they even going to know to do it?
Exactly.
Yeah, so that's why these conversations are so important. And is no such thing as too small. I mean, back in the day, investing was a rich man's game. It's not like that anymore. You can start an investment account or an IRA account with no minimum. Like been a very competitive landscape as far as these brokers like Vanguard, T. Rowe Price, Fidelity. All of those have pretty much said no minimums and no fees. So anybody could get one of those accounts with almost nothing to start. So it's easy to get it going.
Yes.
So I'm going to share my screen one more time. And I wanted to show you guys, we talked about, even though you don't have a ton of money, you can still save. So I always love to show this magic of compound growth, where even if you have a really small amount, again, if you start saving while you're young, it really adds up. So here's how you can get to $1 million after 40 years just by saving $50 a month. So or $50 a week. So if you save $50 a week and you got 9% growth, which is what you can expect if your money is invested in the stock market, after 40 years, you would have $1 million. Wow. So that's the magic of compound growth. And think about the generations. So think about your kids, somebody graduating from high school, graduating from college. If you showed them this, most of them would say, hey, I got a part-time job. I can do $50 a week. That's easy. So think of like that generational knowledge that you're passing on to start this early, and you could have $1 million. Like if you want to wake up a kid and have their eyes get big and them get like excited about something. Like I teach a lot of financial literacy classes for high school and college kids, and they all love this slide because in their mind, that's the mecca to be a millionaire. So when they see that they could be a millionaire, they're thrilled about that. Now, I always get them a little more inspired, and I'll show them, I'll say, look, you can actually do this in 20 years, in half the time, if you wanted to. And I'll show them the numbers for that. Because it's like, imagine if you could cut the time in half. So I show them how much it would take. And remember, as you get older, you're going to make more money, which means you can save more money. That $50, consider that on training wheels. Consider that a way for you to sort of exercise that muscle and just get used to saving. And then when you graduate from college and you get a great job, like the average household income in America is $60,000 a year. So most people can swing, this $350 a week if they wanted to focus on it. And if they wanted to retire in 20 years versus 40. Again, this is definitely the aggressive, the superstar, right? Saying, okay, I want to do it in 20 years. Well, here you go. Here's how you get there in 20 years. It's $350 a week. All the other assumptions are the same. 9% growth in the stock market, 20 years. And I just show them those side by side. It's like, okay, pick your choice. You could do $50 a week and you get there in 40 years, or you could do it in 20 years and save $350 a week. It's just up to you. So that's what I like to show, just to say, no matter how small it is, it's worth starting that savings exercise so that you're used to it. You've exercised that muscle and it becomes easy for you. You've created a habit.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
That's good.
That is awesome.
Yeah. So, I mean, just little things like that, just to get some wheels turning, is just always very helpful. And that's what I try to do. And I just get a lot of questions, kids love to ask a bunch of questions. So I just like to throw things out there to get them thinking. And, I tell them, you cannot underestimate what you guys have. You have time. And for them to get that kind of information so early, it's really going to make a difference for them.
And with this generation, you have most kids, their allowance is more than $50 a week.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, really, their allowance is more than $50 a week. So it's
Right.
doable even in high school. Well, I would say middle
Right.
school, because you have middle school kids that, you know, they get an allowance and that they can save it up, take a portion of that, start, you know, in middle school and get used to saving. They can have more than what they need in a time frame that's where they're still young. They can become,
Right.
you know, while they're still young.
Right. And that's why I like to start with that really small amount, because like you mentioned before, we have to kind of meet them where they're at. And if you're coming up with this huge number that doesn't even seem possible to them, it's hard to imagine. So I just like to start with something that's very doable, where they're like, yeah, I got $50 a week. I make more than that in my part-time job. So then all of a sudden, you know, they're sticking their chest out and they're like, yeah, you know, I got this. So
that's awesome.
So yeah. And the truth of the matter is, unfortunately, a lot of times, you know, we're spending so much time, you know, paying off debt, credit card debt and things like that. So that piece of budgeting and trying to get the debt paid down, you know, there's a lot of resources for that. And I'll show you some once we're, you know, when we get done here. But, you know, don't let that be an obstacle for you. You can make a plan and you can get that paid off. You guys have probably talked about that at some point, but the debt part is real. You know, that can mentally slow you down, and it can slow you down, you know, financially as well. But, you know, make a plan to work on that and just create the muscle by saving and doing a little something, even while you're paying the debt off. Yeah.
And I think a lot of times, I know for me in the past, it's about, and not just with saving money, with anything, it's the sacrifice. A lot of times we don't want to sacrifice the now for the later. We want to, you know, and I always say you either sacrifice now or you sacrifice later. So which one? So you pick your poison. So you're gonna have to sacrifice eventually. So it's either now or later.
Right.
So
yeah, if you can't balance the budget, the only thing you could do, you could either make more money or you could spend less. So, you know, hey, a lot of small business owners, you might be in a position where you can make more money. You got a lot more flexibility sometimes than people working for an employer, because it is what it is. But yeah, it's a series of choices, right? It's like a decision tree to figure out when you want to do things and what you want to do at what time.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Well, I mentioned the credit part and the debt, and I would be remiss if I don't show something that I know everybody thinks about. So I'm gonna just share a quick look at that. And I'm sure most people know this, but just to be crystal clear, I wanted to kind of show what the credit score calculation is. Okay. So basically, the two biggest parts of your credit score is 35% is payment history and 30% is the amount of credit you're being used. That means you take the available credit that you have. Let's say you have $10,000 across all your credit cards. How much of that are you using? So if you have bad credit and you're trying to work on that, these are the two biggest things that's causing your credit to be low. Those are what you want to work on. Now I'll show you the other pieces. They don't count quite as much, but you know, just so you know those as well. The length of history, when you're young, you really don't have a lot of control over that. Any new credit that you open, and then the types of credits. The types of credit is going to be credit cards, student loan, a mortgage, things like that. But those two at the bottom, those are the really, really critical ones that would have the greatest impact on your credit score. So that piece you want to work out, because unfortunately, you're going to end up paying more in interest. A lot of times you're not going to be able to get the loans that you want and do what you want. So most things that you do in your life today, they're going to check your credit. Like even when you go into I didn't know this, you guys, but even when you go into the military now, they check your credit. They won't keep you from going in, but they will make you fix it before you decide to, before they let you in.
Wow.
And yeah, I had a nephew that was in the going in the Air Force, and he told me that. I'm like, you are kidding. But yeah, they look at that.
Wow. Well, a lot of employers now pull your credit also before, before you even go to an interview. They pulled your credit as well.
That's a big one. So yeah, and I'll just show, so these are all the things that you can expect your credit to be pulled for. Again, it's not just when you want to get a loan, like Melody said, getting a job, getting insurance, that could be a big one. Even if when you're renting now, they're going to do it. Utility companies are doing it. So that is just such an integral part of our lives now. The fact that credit, is going to play a big part. So
that's some valuable information because folks don't know this information.
Yeah, and I always like to give resources. So let me just kind of show that. Two of the main things that I use to kind of check my credit that's free. And again, that's another thing. Don't ever pay to get your credit score, your credit report, because it's free in so many places now. So I wouldn't waste money on that. Credit Karma, these are two apps that I use now. Credit Karma I've used that for probably over 10 years. But it is updated every week, and yeah, that's my credit 816. That's my credit score. But Credit Karma, I like better. I don't feel like I get so many ads and things like that, but again, it's free. And then Credit Sesame is another one where you have your credit. I think they only update once a month. But again, these are two free apps. And also, if you want to get your credit report, which going to have everything. Now, Credit Karma has a lot of your report on there. So you can get stuff from there as well. If you want your full credit report, you can get that at annualcreditreport.com. That's the only place that's authorized by the federal government to offer you a free credit report once a year from all three bureaus. On that, you're looking for, okay, do they have stuff on here that's not mine? Do they have mistakes? That's what you're looking for. And if you see mistakes, you can dispute those. At the credit card company, I think they have 30 days to respond. And if they don't respond, I think that it goes in your favor. So if you're trying to clean up your credit, pull the report and challenge anything on there that looks remotely incorrect or wrong, because that will immediately change your score if it's either removed or it goes in your favor. But remember that these reports, they are riddled with mistakes. So yeah.
That's awesome.
So there's that. So get your credit right. It's so many free resources is the point. Free resources. I'm just amazed over the last 10 years how, people, I probably at some point was paying $29.99 a month just to have my credit monitored and get my credit score and everything. And now all of that is free. There's a ton of places to get the stuff for free now. So that's something I would not pay for. Wow. Again, money back in your pocket.
Yeah. Exactly.
So.
Exactly. Now, were you going to ask a question?
No, because she basically covered what I wanted her to talk about as far as starting with your credit, start working on it. But then you also need to still, even though you're working on your credit, you still can't leave out that saving portion, even though you may not be saving what you need to save. You should still be saving something in the process as well. Because, I'm a true believer in the mindset, because like I said last week, it's not the amount. You're training your mind that you need to, save. It becomes a habit then. So as things grow and progress,
you're creating the habit.
Already being the habit. Yeah, you already have that new mindset, because we should control
That's so
money.
important.
Money should not control us. We should be telling our money where to go, not our money telling us where it's going to go.
I mean, even if you were only to save $5 a week while you're paying your debt off, while you're getting your credit right, you are exercising that muscle. And when you get the debt paid off and you get your credit straight, you are already, it's going to be easy to just pump up your savings. but just create that habit. I mean, we are smart people and we can do more than one thing at once. So have your little savings going on, even while you're paying off your debt. Mentally, it may even make you feel better to say, okay, at least I'm still saving something while I'm getting all this out of the way. Because you'll get there. You'll get there.
Yeah. Well, ladies, our time is up.
Now, do you mind if I leave them with a couple of resources? Now, I'm going to send you over a PDF of the whole presentation with these resources. But for anyone that's looking at it right now, and they might just say, well, how do I learn more? I want to learn more. Let me just show you a couple of things that have been very helpful to me. Okay. Again, there's a lot of content creators, people of color that kind of might have similar backgrounds, part of our culture. So there's a couple out of Atlanta. They run this awesome blog called Rich and Regular. They talk a lot about financial independence and things like that. Journey to Launch, she's out of New York. She has a podcast that's awesome. I love podcasts. And there's this adorable family. I think they lived in California for a long time, but they've been working overseas. And now they live in Portugal, and they have these two adorable daughters. So they retired early as well. These guys are only in their 30s. So wow. Yeah, so these are a couple of really good ones. And here's just a few more. I don't know if any of you guys are familiar with John Hope Bryant, but he runs something called Operation Hope. He talks a lot and has a lot of programs around financial literacy in underprivileged communities, of color and things like that. And then there's some other really good shows that specifically talk about, financial literacy, financial education. Again, these are all resources that I have read, looked at, listened to, and I've found them to be very valuable. So that's why I'm sharing those. And then, and someone that is really want to kick it into gear, Choose FI is a podcast I started listening to where they have grown to where they created a foundation. And through that foundation, they created this free course called Financial Independence 101. And it's a free course. And I was so glad that they were able to offer this for free because I already know the content is really good. It really helped me a lot on my journey as I was sort of, getting to the end here. They broke things down really great. They had great guests and they created this course. And I'm like, okay, I will definitely be sharing this course because, a lot of times courses, they cost a lot of money. And it's like, okay, if you're already struggling financially, the last thing you want to do is shell out more money. So this is a free course that will take you through the whole thing. And again, this will be in the PDF where they can get to it as well. And then, and that's it. I just always love to share some resources that might be helpful. Please feel free to email me or visit my website at Money Letters too. But I appreciate you guys having me because I love talking about this money thing because I feel like it really is going to make a difference simply to talk about it. And so we're just getting started.
So Jack, I have a book also. So tell our viewers how they can purchase your book.
Okay, so the book is called Money Letters to My Daughter. Now, as I had this big financial literacy epiphany, of course, the first thing I wanted to do was pass this on to my daughter. So I did write a book called Money Letters to My Daughter, and it is available on Amazon, or you could go to my website, which is moneyletters2.com. But yeah, you can get it there. And it's basically just short little letters where I'm sharing all this information I learned about finances with her.
Wow. That's wonderful. That's wonderful. That's wonderful. And guys, we're going to drop in the comments a link also. If you want to go back and look over information that was shared tonight, Jackie is going to be sending that over and we'll be able to share that so you all can take a look at it. You can print it off if you want to keep it for resources or whatnot. But I have really enjoyed having you with us tonight. And I feel like maybe we need to do another one because there's still so much that you talked about in your video and also in that information that you really didn't get a chance to talk about. You gave excellent information, but somebody may want to go a little bit deeper, ready to take that and make that change and go a little deeper. And you still got valuable information to share with everyone. So maybe we need to set up another time.
Well, you know, I'm a
another show with-
hometown girl, so I'm always happy to come back. This was so awesome. Melody, I appreciate you inviting me in the first place. And, you know, if you want to stick that video also in the comments,
I
again,
will.
I did talk about some things that we didn't get to today. Again, I just want to make sure we don't lose anybody. I want to break it down and try to meet you where you're at. You know, some of these concepts can get really complicated, but once you get your finances going, you will have these more advanced level questions that come up. And so I'm definitely happy to do that. Again, you know,
Thank you.
I'm so thrilled to be kind of like, you know, giving back to my community. And I just feel like, you know, this is family, this is friends that I grew up with. So, you know, I appreciate that. And I would love to come back anytime.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, guys. This has been Talk Therapy. I am Tara T. Stallings, and
I am Melody Manning.
Melody is playing today.
Okay, you guys, I got to say one last thing. I just want to give big ups to my brother. He is a small business owner. He owns Triple C Sports in Aiken, South Carolina on Silver Bluff Road. He's been struggling like everyone else, but he just opened up his doors again. He sells sports, any type of sports memorabilia, shirts, hats, jackets. If you got a team that you love, especially in the South Carolina and Georgia area, he will hook you up. So pay him a visit if you're there in person and support a small business, man.
What's his name again? What's the name?
The name of the business is Triple C Sports is the name of the store. He does some online business as well. His name is Charles Cummings. So if y'all went to Silver Bluff, make sure you pay him a visit.
All right. Awesome. Awesome. Thank you guys for listening. Make sure you like and share and like. Thank you, Jackie, for being our guest today, and we will definitely have you on again.
Great. Thank you, guys.
Have a good week, you guys.
Thank you. You have a good one.